we can have your attention for a moment, please. If everyone can take out their cell phone, iPhones, handheld personal devices, they have to be powered off. They can't be on vibrate, silent, or any mode other than powered off. If you're speaking this evening, please ask that you sign in. You're able to speak among the entire board here, either by the microphone podium or in the front table here. If you are presenting any material or designs or elevations, we ask that you please lay them flat on the table here so it can be picked up for record purposes. If you are speaking to one another, we ask that you please take it in the hallway. It interferes with our opportunity to hear those who are speaking. This evening, we're going to start by first opening the opening the meeting, and motion to open, please.
I make a motion that we open the April 24th, 2017 meeting of the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Welcome to the April 24th, 2017 meeting of the Architectural Board of Review and Historic Preservation. My name is Curtis Highsmith, and I'm your chair. I'd like to introduce our panel for this evening. Unfortunately, we do not have Christina Redding here this evening, but we do have Brian Brady. We want to welcome Susan Stevenson as well as Jeff Broadley. Our historic consultant, Zach Studenroth, our legal counsel, Bo Robinson, and as always, we'll welcome you, Antoinette. We're going to start this evening meeting with signs, and first application, please.
First application is Fast Quality Carpentry.
Is the applicant present?
He wasn't here the last meeting either.
It's really
Really?
not on
A
ours.
sign
A sign?
No, he was a no-show last time.
Okay. I'm sorry?
He was a no-show.
All right. We need a letter out to the applicant to find what his intentions are. If he's not here at the next meeting, we'll withdraw the application from our agenda. Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion that we adjourn the application of Fast Quality Carpentry.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next application, please.
This application, Catherine Tess, Southampton.
Hi. Your name for the record, please. I'm sorry?
Gladys Bank.
Miss Bank. You're proposing this sign. Will it be placed over the doorway?
Yes.
Okay. It's just not...
There's a brick facade above the doorway.
I get that. Normally, typically what happens is your sign person would actually have it put on the actual facade itself so we can see the dimension sign.
When I handed it in, I think she highlighted it, but maybe when she made copies, it didn't show up.
All right. So the name of is Kathleen Tess, Southampton?
That's it.
No telephone numbers, no...
Sign, no.
The sign itself, is it made out of wood?
Wood.
Carved wood? Painted lettering?
Just painted lettering, no carving.
And this represents the actual facade as well as color?
Correct.
And for purposes of the record, what is the color? Because I don't have a
Gray.
sample of the swatch.
It's that gray.
It's gray?
Yeah, it's the
Okay.
gray that's shown in the picture.
I had no issues with the application. There are no lights or any lanterns?
I think we may, at a later date, apply for electric to light the sign, but for now, we just wanted to,
What do you mean by light the sign? You have a goose down lamp?
yeah, but we're not going to do that now. We just want to get it up and get it open, and then we'll do
Understood.
that later.
What about the windows? I saw that there were the dress of 69 Main Street Gala. That's going to be removed?
That's going to be removed.
Understood. And there's nothing on the glass or the front door?
No, not now. Maybe we'll apply for that also at some later date.
Very good. Brian, any comments?
No issue. It's a beautiful sign.
Same here.
No, the sign is, I wish there had been a rendering on there to see how it compared relative to Ralph's sign in
It's
terms of the
actually,
size.
we measured Ralph's. It's actually exactly the same as Ralph's.
The height? Okay,
It's the
Well,
same.
the dimensions here are 84
right,
by 30.
right.
It's a
Comparable to his sign.
Okay.
white background with gray lettering.
Yep, okay, we're good.
Any public comment on the application? Motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the sign of Catherine Tess, Southampton.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good luck.
So much, thank you.
And our last time application for the evening.
ADG Development.
Is the applicant present?
I thought he was the applicant.
I get to it there. ADG? All right, applicants, board members, it's a contractor sign, white background, gray lettering, ADG, Development LLC, has a website and telephone number. Not very busy, no
I
logos,
think
no.
it's pretty. It's handsome, I guess is what you said.
Don't know how pretty or handsome, but it's
Handsome.
very, very simplex. Any public comments on the application? All right. Motion to approve?
Make a motion that we approve the sign of ADG Development LLC.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Concludes our sign permits for this evening. First application, historic. The applicant has requested to adjourn until May 8th, 2017. I need a motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn.
I make a motion that we approve the applicant's request to adjourn Hampton's HCS LLC until May 8th, 2017.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Just for purposes of trying to expedite, we have two applications closed for written decision by council. Let's just proceed to those two applications for approval, and then we'll go back to Southampton. First application is 82 Little Plains Road, closed for written decision by council. Council?
The file contains the decision approving the application as submitted. An affirmative vote on that motion will be to approve the application.
Motion to approve written decision by council for approval of 82 Little Plains Road.
I make a motion that we approve the written decision by council for 82 Little Plains Road, Irvin Schwartz.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have to actually vote?
And also, there's a closed for written decision for 65 First Neck Lane LLC. Motion, council?
Similarly, the decision approves the application as submitted. An affirmative vote on the application will be to approve it.
Motion to approve written decision by council for 65 First Neck Lane.
I make a motion that we approve the written decision by council for 65 First Neck Lane LLC.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's go back to Southampton 24 LLC. The applicant, please.
Sure, they'll have small things.
For the applicant, 24 and 28, I think you've been hearing together.
Yes.
Ready to go? For the applicant, my name is John Bennett. Bailey Larkin, my associate, is with me this evening, as is Tim Haynes and Richard Hayes from Tim Haynes' office. Tim is the project architect. And Ed Hollander is here with us this evening also. Always a pleasure to have Ed. I'm going to give you a little bit of outline about what we talked about the last time, because you all weren't here. So I want to do a little bit of that, talk a wee bit about the relevant law, and talk about some of the things that we handed you and gave you last week. And then I'll have Mr. Haynes and then Mr. Hayes, who is prepared a statement regarding the historical precedents. He's probably too reticent to tell you this, but I'm very happy to have Mr. Hayes here. He was teaching assistant along with Maya Lynn for Vincent Scully, who I'm sure, as some of you may know, I've talked about the book a lot. He essentially wrote the book on, Mr. Scully wrote the book on shingle style architecture, and Mr. Hayes was his teaching assistant. So just a very brief summary, and I'll have Tim talk a little bit about it, but more in depth. But we did reduce the residence from 17,275 square feet to 16,195 square feet. The length was reduced from 183, where it was approximately 200. We varied some roof heights. Gable ends were eliminated. And number of windows facing east was reduced. The amount of glass in the entry court was reduced. The house was shifted 3.9 feet further from the east property line. There's some other changes that I'll have Tim go over.
Got it.
For the height challenged.
We submitted a chart. I'll just finish my presentation, and then I'll have Tim talk about the changes before we have Richard Hayes come up, and then we'll have Ed Hollander come up. We submitted a chart comparing the living area versus the overall size of the residence on the surrounding lots, and we thought that was important because, as indicated on the chart, the average ratio of living area to overall living area for the surrounding residence is approximately 12.45%. We're at 9.8. There's also been some statements that this is the longest and largest house in the village. I think we took just a illustrative grab and submitted a chart last week with just about 8 or 9 houses, all of which exceeded 200 feet in length. It was hardly exhausted by any means, so this is far from the largest or widest or longest house in the village. It, of course, does comply with all height, square footage, GFA, coverage, setback requirements. It is in the parlance, an as-of-right house because it does comply with all zoning requirements. I had also discussed the Supreme Court's, and I'll be quicker than I was the last time because I know some of you have heard this before, but it's important to lay it out as a foundation. We discussed the Supreme Court's decision in Ferrara, which holding this board expressly referenced and approvingly in its decision regarding 483 Hill Street. The board's decision in 483 Hill Street was appealed by Ann Pine. The Supreme Court, Suffolk County, granted the motion of the petitioner, F.A. East and Farrell Building Company, to dismiss the action. This was all based upon the argument that you had the authority to downsize a house and make it lower and smaller. In effect, had site plan review authority. The Supreme Court's determination was appealed. An oral argument was had before the appellate division. The Ferrara decision was discussed favorably by Justice Hall. I submitted a copy of the appellate division's decision at the last hearing.
late 19th century to early 20th century, we were studying every type, and the ones that became more cottage-like had this deep overhang with the bay windows sort of stopping it. And when we did that, we also then narrowed the bays. We took some of the glass out of the bays, and we took them from a 45-degree angle to a 30-degree angle. Thus, they became a much softer, undulating facade. The whole thing became much less aggressive, and in a way we thought more beautiful, and so we were happy and very excited. The other thing that had been bothering me was the original concept was that this would be a series of buildings built around a court that would be connected, and originally all of our ridge lines were at one height, and I said I really would like to, as much as possible, vary the ridge lines. So we took the main building, maintained its ridge line at the higher point, and we dropped the two side buildings 3 feet?
3 feet.
3 feet. And we narrowed them about
3 feet.
3 feet, and we shortened them, pulling them 4 feet back from the neighbors' properties, again, trying to give as much breadth as possible. By doing that, by narrowing them, shortening them, it also enabled us to take the two connectors and widen them so that we got a more distinct reading of the three pieces. And with the shadow lines of the bays becoming softer and the sheltering overhangs of the roofs, the whole thing became a much more cottage-like vernacular. By doing that, we reduced the volume of the entire structure 12%, which I bring the two models because I think it's illustrative of that difference in the volume. Those were my main concerns, because I thought that if we could get it to breathe a little bit more, pull it back from the neighbors, lower it, get rid of all of the sort of large gable ends coming out of it, it would be a much more soft experience when looked at from the neighbors, because that's really the view that, if anyone's going to see it, is going to become, the most impactful. We also then took away most of the glazing on the eastern side facing the neighbors so that we minimized any feeling that we were sort of staring out at them. And as I think I talked to you before, on the ocean side, got rid of the large swooping staircase, brought up the sort of three-partite octagon of the bays, and hid the stairs within the terrace, and made the terrace smaller as well. And then in the rear facade, which maybe it's more illustrative. So this was our new softer front facade. So we had the higher, the lower, the lengthened connections between the three pavilions. And then in the back facade, taking what was a big central glass section, replacing it with a chimney, the corner windows pushing your views towards the two wings. Again, the wider connections between the two side wings versus the central volume, and the reduction of having repetitive windows, which gave a more could be seen as a more sort of commercial or repetitive element, and going to repeating the soft undulating 30-degree bays from the front, so that there was a connection around the entire building. Yep.
And again, this is not a house that was designed in a vacuum, detached from historical precedents, not only from the village, but in other estate areas of the world. And again, you can look at, all you have to do is drive to the estate area of Southampton and see that it is an area that is deep in precedent from other areas. So I did want Richard Hayes come forward. Richard, do you have extra copies, or we have them if you don't?
I have my own copy.
Perfect.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Our proposed design for a new house at 24-28 Gin Lane is based in part on architectural precedents fundamental to the history of the village of Southampton. Settled in 1640 and incorporated in 1894, the village is the oldest English settlement in the state of New York. It has a unique architectural heritage strongly influenced by New England in particular, and by Anglo-American domestic architecture in general. In order to bring these traditions to bear on this specific site, we researched examples from two architectural styles, the American shingle style and British domestic design of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, especially the work of Edwin Lutyens. From the shingle style, which flourished on the eastern seaboard during the 1870s and 1880s, we studied important designs by McKimmitt and Wright, including the Low House in Bristol, Rhode Island, and the houses for Isaac Bell and Robert Golett, both in Newport. All of these precedents are marked by shingle-covered facades capped by large sheltering roofs. Most shingle-style houses also incorporated covered porches that take advantage of their seaside settings. In addition, the Low House has multi-story window bays that project gently from the facade. Vertically proportioned window bays were an important feature in traditional British design, found in examples ranging from Elizabethan and Jacobean manor houses of the 16th and 17th centuries to arts and crafts houses of the 19th and 20th centuries. Many of Lutyens' country houses, such as Folly Farm in Berkshire and Overstrand Hall in Norfolk, feature such window bays. In the immediate context of Gin Lane, the Barnes carriage house has two symmetrical window bays projecting from its primary facade. In order to acknowledge these traditions and context, we incorporated projecting window bays on the principal facades of our design, including the three elevations that face the entry court. Windows in these bays will be metal, a detail inspired by the metal and glass conservatory on the adjacent estate. To reduce the scale of the house, the plan is broken down into three main volumes, each of which has a hipped roof sheathed in cedar shingles. Hipped roofs characterize the mansion that previously stood on the site, Wooldon Manor, constructed around 1900 by Dr. Peter Wyckoff. Also inspired by Wooldon Manor is our formal entry court, where the house's three volumes are connected by two-story links with standing seam metal roofing. The ocean-facing facade combines a covered porch on the ground level and an open porch at the second floor. The covered porch has shingle-clad posts based on similar components at houses such as Cragside in Manchester by the Sea, among other shingle-style houses. A centrally placed brick chimney forms the dominant vertical element on the west facade and alludes to the importance of chimneys as domestic emblems throughout Anglo-American architectural history. It is our intention that by acknowledging these historical and local precedents, our design will engage in a conversation across time with the background influences that have shaped so many of Southampton's houses. Thank you so much.
Before I ask Hollander to come up, I know some of the conversation in the initial hearing was about, the bay windows, and I just knew it viscerally that there was such a great antecedent and precedent for that, and here it is, illustration one. This is the and right, not maybe half a mile from here, illustration 7. Everybody knows this building, which this board went to great lengths to prevent from even being moved from its location. Interestingly, there was a planning board approval that required this to be moved. And this board said, no, we want it right where it is. So,
sideway entry the way we're doing
with the sideway entry. I was doing so. In any event,
John, identify it because anybody looking at the tape will not know what the board knows.
this is 88 Jen.
Carriage house.
You want this now, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna crush it.
Don't crush it. That's not nice.
I'll hand it over.
Sorry. Can you get it, Richard? Good.
Good evening. My name is Edmund Holland. I'm a landscape architect. And I want to talk a little bit about this property and how this house and this landscape that we're designing is important as part of the fabric of the village of Southampton. And that's something that's very important to me personally and me professionally. The first few boards I wanted to show you are other homes we've worked on in the historic district in the village of Southampton. And there may be 20 or 30 of them from Gin Lane and Great Plains and Halsey Neck Lane and First Neck Lane and Meadowmere and Ox Pasture. And a lot of the areas that we think of as really essential to the fabric of Southampton. The fabric, when we think of the village of Southampton, I know architects like to think it's the buildings that make it, but landscape architects think that it's everything else besides the buildings. That the buildings may make up 12,000 square feet of a 2-acre property, but it's the landscapes of these properties and it's the landscapes of the streets and the landscapes of the public spaces that I think give the feeling that everybody wants to preserve in this room. And so what I wanted to show the board and members of the community that are here that are concerned with this are some of the other representative projects. These are not all the projects we've worked on in the village of Southampton, particularly in the historic district. And all are different. The range of architects is any number of local architects, New York City architects, architects from out of the region. But in all cases, the feeling of the historic district with the mature trees and the lush landscapes and the sense of privacy that everybody wants to feel on their homes and in their landscapes and in the public areas of their landscapes is something that we've tried to do on every one of the houses that we see here and on this project that we're working on Gin Lane right now. I think that's a very important that this house and this landscape is a good neighbor, that we are part of a sympathize with being vertically challenged also, so I put this here so we can all see it. I can tilt it up if you'd like. But these are views of the actual, how the property will feel and how the houses, how the guest house and the main house will feel set within this landscape, because a person's home is really the property that they're on and the buildings that are part of it. And how this feels and how it feels within the context of this one property, how it feels within the larger context of the village of Southampton is something that's very important to us on this particular house and on every other house we hope to continue to do in the village of Southampton and throughout the area. So these next few boards kind of give a sense of the way the property will feel with the trees that are here, the elms, the maples, the oaks, the plane trees, the plantings that like to grow in proximity to the ocean, the trees that will fit in with the trees that are currently growing along Gin Lane that we found are happy and growing in this neighborhood, how to get things established over the 25 years that we've worked in the area. And the idea of how this property is going to feel, that it's not a building sitting out in a naked landscape. It's a building that's set in a landscape of trees and plantings and other things that give it the feeling of home and that make it a good neighbor to the other houses that are around it. And hopefully from these images, one can see how this property is going to feel. And we've tried to do this at a time. Everyone says, you know, what vision of your landscape? Is it the day it's planted? Is it 2 years later? Is it 5 years later? We try to show a house the way it's going to look within a couple of years after it's planted so that everybody has a good idea of what's this going to feel like. What's it going to feel like so that when we go by there, this is the way it's going to look within a couple of years. So I think this gives a sense of context and a sense of how the house is going to feel, that it's not a naked house sitting out there, that it's a house amongst the trees, amongst the landscape, that's giving context within the property and within the village. And then we went on, because we're actually recently retained by the people that own Woolden Manor, and we're working for other folks down Gin Lane. So it's important. How's this house going to feel as we're driving past the Bathing Corporation? How's this house going to feel as we're coming up the other way of Gin Lane? How's it going to feel to my clients that live on the far side of Lake Agawam, on the west side of Lake Agawam, that are looking across at this? So while I have to be working for the clients that own this house, I have a larger responsibility to all of the clients that I've had today and tomorrow within the village of Southampton. How does this house feel as part of this? One can see from this view, and I don't have the technological capabilities to do this, but fortunately there are younger, smarter people than I am in my office who know how to do it. This is a composite of a Google Earth image from the west looking over this way. This is how the property looks today. And then you can see here, this is the current Woolden Manor property, the Bathing Corporation and Gin Lane parking lot, and how the new house is going to sit in here amongst the other houses that are here with the landscaping as planted. And one could see, I think, that it becomes the house and the landscape becomes part of the fabric of the village of Southampton. It doesn't stand out, and it doesn't become something that people look at and say, look at that great new big house. Nobody wants that, I think, neither our clients nor anyone else in the village. This is a composite of a view from the Bathing Corporation that shows in relationship the relative roof heights and the roof lines as one can be seen. And listen, it's a fascinating conglomeration, if you will, of different architectural styles. Zach, I'm sure you could go on in length about. These are the existing houses that are here. This is the roof line of the proposed new house that's proposed. And these are some of the adjoining houses. And I think from this we can see that this house doesn't stand out in any form or manner, that it does become a good neighbor and a good citizen and does fit into the context of the village of Southampton. With the final image, I think, there's one more. As you're driving along Gin Lane, you can see behind the hedge that's here and behind the wall from Woolden Manor, this red arrow we put on shows the bits of the roof line that are visible from the parking lot, from the street. If someone was walking or driving along here, what you could actually see of this house after it's built and after the landscaping is installed that goes along with it. And we did a couple of other views. This was a view from the adjoining property, from the current August of Woolden Manor property, of what could be seen from their property. And we did another view, and I know it's imperfect, but I think it gives a sense of scale and how this would fit in with the other buildings that are around there. And I think we can see from this that this house is while no one would say it's a small house, it's a discrete addition to the village landscape. And it's a discrete addition to what one sees from the public elements of this village and from the public streets and from the neighboring properties. And that was really what I wanted to get across from this, was that this wasn't just, it's not just a piece of architecture. It's this house and this home is going to be part of the community of the village of Southampton, and we wanted to be very respectful in the way we designed the landscape to make sure this was going to be a good neighbor.
Also, thank you very much, Ed. And also, I do, in terms of neighborhood thought, I do want to remind the board that...
I can't, I'm sorry, what were you saying? I couldn't hear, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I did want to remind the board that the August from who are the current owners of Woolden Manor, that's the old Vince Camuto house, have allowed us to submit a letter of no objection. And Beck and Alex 22, that's that, I believe it's a Robert A. M. Stern house going up on the northerly part of the former Camuto conglomeration there. We've given them the plans, and they have not given us any objections to date. We're not aware that they have any objections. So those are the neighbor to the west and to the north. Thank you.
We're going to go into a public comment. We're just finishing.
I just have one question for Ed.
Just let us finish up with the applicant, and then we'll allow you to come forward. Applicant, are you finished with your presentation?
I think we're done. Unless you have some questions.
Very good. Now we'll go to public comment. You have to step forward, please. And your name for the record, please.
Ellen Scarborough.
Okay.
I just have a question for Ed. What kind of deciduous trees do you plan to plant?
It's a very important question, so we want to step forward and just so that we can have, and we don't, just understand we don't typically do this, the commuting back and forth across the table, but this is an important application.
Wonderful neighbor and citizen. The trees that we found that grow best in this proximity to the ocean, there's several trees that grow. The plane trees, the Platanus acerifolia bloodgood, grows along Gin Lane and grows throughout the village of Southampton. That's the tree that lines Wyandanch Lane that people love. That's one of the most salt-tolerant, hardiest trees that grows out here.
And so close to the dunes and so close to the ocean? Because I know just across the street from Gin Lane, we have a hard time keeping.
No, we've had good luck. That's probably that and the silver linden, the Tilia tomentosum, are two of the most salt-tolerant trees. We have them actually at fairly great scale on the property right now. There are other trees that are there. There's an ash tree that's very salt-tolerant, but unfortunately it's susceptible to green leaf borer and other diseases, so we won't plant that so much. But the lindens, American elm we started to plant again now. They're hybrid versions of that are resistant to Dutch elm disease. We've had very good luck with both the Jefferson and the Princeton variety of elm that were all over Southampton and East Hampton for a long time. But elms and lindens and plane trees are the predominant shade trees that will grow best and that we can move at significant size that will live in this proximity to the ocean.
That close to the sand.
Well, the nice thing about these properties is they were all farm fields going back to some point. We have beautiful, rich topsoil, clay, sand. We've got really good growing conditions. And as you know, though, it does take some time. And after you plant a tree that's 25 or 30 feet tall, one of the things we have to explain to our clients is they don't grow instantly. It takes a year or two for them to grow and root in before they start putting on significant growth. But we've done this for 20 or 25 years. I've killed a lot of trees out here. When I first got out of graduate school, I thought I knew everything, and I killed almost everything. But I've learned, fortunately, since then. So we've had good luck.
It just seems like the wind gets them all.
The wind does. It's absolutely.
Wind.
And you can see some of the trees out here that are shaped like this. That's called the Krumholtz effect, after some Dr. Krumholtz. But those trees we've had good luck with, and I think they'll do well there.
All our trees look like that.
They've all got that Krumholtz effect.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Please step forward.